Hey, so movies are really good right now, so I figured I should say something. First of all, this whole Barbenheimer phenomenon is awesome. The joy that it brings me to see people not only excited about going to the movies, but dressing up to boot is immeasurable. And I don't know when was the last time I had seen such enthusiasm like this, if ever. Even when I went to the Demon Slayer movie a few years ago, there was just a little sprinkling of green checkers throughout the audience. Going to see Barbie, on the other hand, I mean, I was in Barbie land, straight up. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the all-in-one-day Barbenheimer double feature, but all things considered, seeing the films on separate days gave me the opportunity to give both my full attention and energy. Plus, in between, I saw Talk to Me, which we will talk about in a little while. Anyway, Barbie. I love Greta Gerwig, and like many people, I was thrilled when I heard that she would be directing this Barbie movie. And the fact that she and her husband Noah Baumbach were co-writers was a huge bonus, considering that Frances Ha is a film I really love. Everybody was hyped for this thing. I saw girls all over the place dressed up in their best Barbie gear. Barbie fever was in full swing all around me. Even my old ass got involved. I got in the box, took a photo, went into the theater, sat myself down, and as I'm waiting for the film to begin, a darkness comes over me that whispered, "Oh no, what if this sucks?" So imagine my relief when it turned out to be very cute and funny out of 10. My favorite thing about this film was its absolute dedication to just being a straight-up cartoon. And yeah, the plot of the movie revolves around more serious topics like feminism and the patriarchy and Barbie's role in all of it, but this film never takes its foot fully off the gas in terms of silliness. And that's kind of the foundation of what overall makes this film work. The directing, writing, and acting were all on the same silly goose page. The basic plot is that stereotypical Barbie, played by Margot Robbie, has this perfect life in Barbie land. Every single day is flawless and idyllic until one day she begins having dark thoughts and everything in her life starts to go wrong. She finds out that it's likely because the little girl who is playing with her must be having all these thoughts as well. So she sets off on a journey into the real world to find the girl and set things right. But when she gets there, she runs into all manner of opinion about what people think of Barbie, what they want from Barbie, what all is or isn't Barbie's fault. Basically what most conversations tend to turn into anytime Barbie's brought up in real life. And again, the film is overall so silly that it never feels like it's being too self-important in its discussion of any of these topics, or like it's trying to control the subsequent discourse about the film. Barbie is a really good example of how you can make really self-referential, on-the-nose humor work. It never turns into the Joss Whedon-esque "so that just happened" type of humor, you know? The characters of Barbie and Ken are so ignorant of how reality works that them describing the world around them and their feelings about it in this really on-the-nose way feels genuine. It's true to character. It works. And Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling have great comedic instincts in the way that they deliver a lot of these lines as well. This is an endlessly quotable movie due in no small part to the two of them. Margot Robbie she just is Barbie. She was able to balance the campiness required of the role with its more serious moments, plus there's a ton of physical comedy that she absolutely nails. She and Ryan Gosling approach these performances with such wide-eyed sincerity and enthusiasm that just made them both a joy to watch. And speaking of Ryan Gosling, as a longtime The Nice Guys evangelist, I am pleased to report that we just keep winning. Yeah. Not only does Ken steal Barbie Land, but he also steals the whole movie. Ryan Gosling's performance as Ken is one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. There are a million little choices he makes in every scene he's in that elevate this part to being 10 times funnier than anybody probably dared to hope for. Ken's motivation in this film revolves entirely around getting Barbie to notice him, to the point where he stows away in the back seat of her car in order to go with her into the real world. When he arrives, he realizes that men are the dominant figures in leadership, unlike Barbie Land, where Barbies are in charge of everything. This thrills Ken, and he promptly takes his limited understanding of the patriarchy back to Barbie Land to share with the other Kens, and the results are a brand of silly that I have dearly missed in film as of late. Gosling's comedic chops are some of the best in the business. Shame on anyone who said that he was the wrong choice for this part. Nice Guys 2, let's go. From the practical sets to the costume design, this film was beautiful to look at. The Ken fight/dance sequence had no right to look as good as it did. Overall, they stuck the landing on this one, in my opinion. It's a fun movie, and not the turn your brain off kind of throwaway fun. It's a truly joyful romp that was made with intention without taking itself too seriously. When the lights went up, I was able to wear my little pink dress with pride. Great job. Now, let's get sad. So speaking of dressing up, shout out to the group of young men who got all dressed up in suits to see Oppenheimer in the theater I was in, only to show up late and talk the entire time. And even bigger shout out to Ludwig Göransson's hauntingly beautiful score for drowning it out for the most part. You have truly risen to the unfair task of being named Ludwig. Anyway, Christopher Nolan just made my favorite thing he's done in a while, and it's a biopic that's genuinely a work of art. Remember those? It's wild to be like we're so back while watching a film about a man whose actions we can never come back from, but maybe that's what my guy Oppie would call a paradox. Or not, I'm bad at math. Which is fine, because this movie taught me that you might not want to be too good at it. See what happens? For those of you who haven't heard, J. Robert Oppenheimer supervised the Manhattan Project, which brought about the development of the atomic bomb. The screenplay Nolan wrote was an adaptation of Oppenheimer's biography, American Prometheus, which apparently was originally supposed to be called Oppie until their editor was like, hey, relax. Anyway, speaking of Prometheus, for anyone who still thinks this film is there to serve as some justification for what Oppenheimer did, the movie opens with some text that lets you know that that ain't the case right away. I won't say exactly what it is, but Nolan was kind of like, Zeus was not wrong. For a film that clocks in at a full 3 hours, I cannot think of any point where it dragged or was spending too much time on one aspect or another. It's thorough without being bloated and just really kind of moves its ass. And at the heart of this extensive exploration of the Manhattan Project, every angle, every conversation imaginable about the creation of this bomb is a very effective character study. It felt very honest, and I don't mean honest in the way that it's so accurate to this man's life. I am not remotely educated enough on who Oppenheimer was as a person to make that assessment. I just felt like at the very least the fictional version of Oppenheimer was treated with the nuance necessary to really make this thing work. Cillian Murphy gave a great performance, and I appreciate the fact that he isn't doing some sort of one-to-one impersonation of Oppenheimer. He captures the essence of the guy, which makes for a better performance anyway, in my opinion. Plus, we're working with photos, speeches, and interviews anyway, so it's not really going to be a complete representation of this man's mannerisms, speech patterns, etc. What we get is Murphy and Nolan's interpretation of Oppenheimer, and it's quite compelling. Everyone in this, and by that I mean everyone in Hollywood whose schedule wasn't tied up with filming Barbie, is great as well. There's at least two people who could easily land a Best Supporting Actor nomination for this. One being Emily Blunt as Oppenheimer's long-suffering wife Kitty, and the other being Robert Downey Jr. for his performance as the pettiest bitch in Washington, D.C. Listen, I've enjoyed him as Iron Man, but also, I missed him doing other things. Visually, I mean, come on, bud. Hoyt van Hoytema is just at it again. Nolan famously prefers to get things in camera if he can, and what a difference it makes. I mean, just like the practical sets in Barbie that feel like you can just reach out and touch them, the practical explosions in Oppenheimer just create that immersion that feels like nothing else. Since we're mostly examining what's going on with Oppenheimer internally, there are these beautiful sequences filled with all of this hypnotic and dreamlike imagery. I was both transfixed and so sad that I couldn't see it in IMAX the first time because everything was sold out. But I will likely go back and see it again and make sure it's an IMAX screen because this movie looks too good not to see it on a screen that's unforgivably huge. This film is quite operatic in its presentation. I know the visual intensity along with the ever-present score wasn't for everyone, but we gotta romanticize math somehow, babe. I don't know what else to do. We've gotta add gravity and momentum for the normies like me that just have to take these people's word on these insane equations that are up all the time. So by the time Oppenheimer hands Einstein that sheet of paper and he's like, "Holy God, what are you showing me?" I'm like, cool. Right there with you. Also, those moments of silence become incredibly meaningful. There's this one little moment of sound design. If you've seen the film, you probably already know what I'm gonna say. When Oppenheimer is all at once realizing the horrific nature of what he's done, and it scared the hell out of me, just as much as the entire next movie I'm gonna talk about. Go see it. This one's worth leaving the house for, I promise. In between my prolonged Barbenheimer experience that was spaced out over the course of a week, I saw Talk to Me. This film was directed by Danny and Michael Philippou from the YouTube channel Rocka Rocka, which I am ashamed to say that I had never heard of until I saw this movie. I would say go check out the channel, but I think I'm literally the last one who has. Anyway, hilarious. Love them. As you guys know, I love horror, and I can be a real pain in the ass about it sometimes, but not today. Today I'm just happy, because Talk to Me was good as heck, pal. The premise is very simple. A couple of teenagers get a hold of this mummified hand that they are using to contact the dead. The main character, Mia, who goes to school with this group of kids, sees the videos they're posting of this ritual they do and wants to participate in the fun. And then whoops, That's all I can say without spoiling the movie. When the movie begins, you get your standard prologue, first victim sequence to show the potential consequences of what we're about to get into with this story, and it's done really well. It moves quickly. Most of it, if not all of it, is done in one shot. Bing, bang, boom, story begins. And man, does it do an awesome job taking its time with character building before we get back to being wild and wacky. The characters feel like real people who, oh my god, actually interact with their devices in a realistic way. No more of this out-of-touch, gee whiz, I guess I gotta visit textmessage.com to send out more email beams. It's teenagers using their phones the way that they actually do. Go figure. And on top of that, these kids speak and behave with the limited self-awareness and emotional intelligence one has as a teenager. Nobody is making these grandiose speeches about why they feel the way that they feel or are the way that they are. They're just kids that are worried about their social lives and putting one foot in front of the other. The main character, Mia, lost her mother a couple of years prior to the beginning of the story, and she doesn't fall into the usual trappings of that type of character. You know, she's not the old death of a parent has turned me goth and I've had my hood up and headphones in ever since type. She is still very much grieving her mother, and that's a huge part of the progression of this story, but she's still just a normal girl who likes to be silly and have fun like her peers do. And you care about her so much by the time she volunteers for the self-induced possession challenge that you're like, oh god, this is gonna freak me out and hurt my heart and change who I am as a person. Great. Jaw-dropping performance from Sophie Wilde. Absolutely uninhibited without coming across as over the top. Tremendous range on display for her starring in her first feature. Oh my god. Star quality right out of the gate. Love to see it. Everyone was great. Again, all the characters felt natural and behaved like people. As simple of a premise as this is, it really keeps you on your toes. There was a certain point for me where the movie takes a bit of a turn, and I literally had no clue where it was going. It was a nice feeling. And in terms of scare factor, this one's probably gonna get you. As someone who is pretty used to watching unusual films, there were a couple of moments in this that genuinely shocked me into involuntarily covering my eyes in the theater. Well-paced, creative, and beyond skillful for a first feature. Plus, it has one of the most beautifully edited montages, I swear to God, that I've ever seen. My only real complaint was the guy in the seat next to mine, who I concluded must have sleep apnea after being forced to participate in his sleep study. This is another one I want to go back and see a second time because I think I missed some crucial dialogue because he was literally snoring that loud. But other than that, and the chatty suit brigade and Oppenheimer, what a solid week at the movies. Now that Barbenheimer week is behind me, I kind of don't know what to do with myself. I guess I could finally get around to watching The Idol, which should be great, by the way. I have heard nothing but good things.